What he found beneath the soil was never meant to be uncovered. Memories, and a truth that could break him, or bring him back to life. But the real question is, was he helping her heal, or was she saving him all along? Stay with this story, 'cause what grows from pain might just change everything you believe about love, loss, and second chances. Before we dive into the incredible story, do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button so you never miss our powerful, life-changing content. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, share it, comments below, and let someone know you are never alone. I arrived in that quiet town with a suitcase, a stiff back, and a heart that had forgotten warmth. The air smelled of dust and pine, too clean, too honest. Then I heard her sharp voice, alive, arguing with the wind as it tore through a dying garden. Grace. Her hands were in the soil, fighting roots that refused to hold on. I watched, long, too silent. Either help me, or stop staring like a ghost, he said. Without turning, something in me shifted. I stepped forward. The soil felt strange, alive. Nothing like the cold ground I remembered. Days passed. We worked side by side, pulling weeds, planting hope, in rows that once held grief. She spoke of her husband, her voice steady, yet trembling beneath the surface. I listened. At night, the silence returned, heavy, unforgiving. Then one evening, the sky burned orange, the garden breathed, and she handed me a small seed. Life begins small, she whispered. My hand shook. Memory, uninvited, crashed through me. Shouting. The scent of earth twisted into something darker. I dropped the seed. The world tilted. Grace stepped closer, her presence warm, steady, unafraid. Stay here, she said softly. Her hand touched mine, and the noise inside me was, for the first time in years, I felt something break. Not pain, something deeper, something opening. The garden stood around us, alive, breathing, watching. And in that fragile moment, as the wind carried the scent of new life, I realized she was not just saving the garden. She was digging through the ruins inside me, finding pieces I buried long ago, holding them to the light. And I stood there, heart unsteady, as something unexpected began to grow, right where the ache felt strongest. And I stood there, heart unsteady, as something unexpected began to grow, right where the ache felt strongest. The next morning, the air carried rain, thin, cold, whispering across the leaves. Grace moved through the garden, like she belonged to it, like grief had roots, and she had learned how to live among them. Today we clear the back corner, she said. Followed. The soil there felt different, quite stubborn, as if it held secrets. My shovel struck something hard, a dull sound, sharp enough to echo inside my chest. Froze. Grace knelt beside me, her breath slow, her eyes searching. We uncovered it together. An old wooden box, worn edges, cracked lid, earth clinging to it, like it refused to let go. His, she whispered. Her voice broke. Barely there. My hands trembled again, but I did not step back. Open it, she said. The moment stretched, heavy, like the seconds before a storm breaks. I lifted the lid. Inside, letters, bound with fading thread. Photograph, edges curled, faces smiling in a life untouched by loss. And beneath it, metal, not mine, but familiar, too familiar. The air shifted, my chest tightened, breath shallow, heat rising behind my eyes. Memories surged, faces I carried, voices I buried, names that still lived in silence. Grace watched me, not afraid, not confused. She understood. How? My voice cracked. How did this get here? She shook her head slowly. I never buried this. The wind picked up, circling us, lifting dust, carrying the scent of rain and something older, something hidden. My pulse thundered, loud, relentless. The garden felt different now, alive, but watching. The ground beneath my boots, no longer soft. It felt like it was waiting. Grace reached for the metal, then stopped. Her fingers hovered, just above it, as if touching it might change something neither of us could take back. And in that suspended breath, between past and present, I felt it again, that same fracture inside me, widening, pulling something to the surface, something I had kept buried deeper than any root. And the sky darkened slowly above us, as if the world itself leaned closer, waiting to see what we would uncover next. And the sky darkened slowly above us, as if the world itself leaned closer, waiting to see what we would uncover next. A drop of rain fell, cold, precise, against my wrist. Then another. The garden exhaled, leaves trembling, soil drinking deeply. Grace finally picked up the metal. Her fingers closed around it, gentle, reverent. "This does not belong to him," she said. Her voice held certainty, and something else, quiet fear. I swallowed, my throat dry, my chest tightening. "It belongs to someone who never came back," I whispered. The words slipped out, before I could stop them. She looked at me, not questioning, not accusing, seeing. The rain grew heavier, tapping against wood, against skin, against memory. I reached into the box again. Letters, thin paper, fragile, like they could dissolve in my hands. I untied the thread. Inside, handwriting I recognized. Not the words, but the weight of them, the kind written when time feels borrowed. My pulse stuttered. "This place," I murmured. "It is not just a garden." Grace stepped closer. "Then what is it?" The question lingered, between us, alive, demanding truth. I looked around. The rose we restored, the life we coaxed back, the ground we trusted. And suddenly, it felt like we had been guided here, not by chance, but by something unfinished. I said slowly, "I think something was left here on purpose." The wind surged, stronger now, pressing against us, as if urging us forward. Grace clutched the letters. "We keep going," she said. No hesitation, only resolve. We moved deeper, past the broken fence, toward the far edge, where wild grass swallowed the land. Each step heavier, each breath sharper. My senses stretched. The smell of wet earth, rich, almost overwhelming. The sound of rain, steady, insistent. And beneath it, something else. A faint metallic scent. Familiar, unsettling. "You stop." Grace nearly walked into me. "Do you feel that?" I asked. She nodded slowly. The ground here felt wrong. Not dead, not alive, disturbed. Knelt, pressing my palm into the mud. Cold seeped into my skin. Shape beneath the surface. Solid, unyielding. My breath caught. Grace's voice lowered to a whisper. "What is it?" I started to dig. Faster now. Hands ignoring the cold. The grit. The rising pulse in my ears. The earth gave way, revealing edges. Metal, darkened, buried with intention. The rain poured harder, blurring everything. But I kept going, because something inside me knew. This was not just the past. This was something waiting, patient, silent, for us to finally uncover it. My fingers scraped against the metal, mud slipping beneath my nails, breath uneven, pulse loud enough to drown the rain. Grace knelt beside me, her shoulder brushing mine, steady, anchoring. "Careful," she whispered. But I was already pulling. The object resisted, held tight by the earth, as if it had chosen to stay hidden. I dug deeper, palms burning, cold water soaking through my sleeves. Shifted, A low scrape. Final. We lifted it together. A rusted container. Edges dented. Sealed with age and silence. The weight of it felt wrong. Too heavy. For something forgotten. Grace wiped the surface. Her hand trembling now. Open it, she said. The words softer this time. But heavier. I hesitated. Not from fear. From recognition. That same quiet warning. That lives in the bones. When something buried was never meant to be found. The rain slowed. Just enough. As if the world held its breath. I pried the lid. It resisted. Then gave. Inside. Cloth. Dark. Folded. Preserved by the cold earth. I pulled it back. My chest tightened sharply. Dog tags. Several. Not one. Not two. Too many. They clinked softly. Hollow sound. That echoed deeper than it should. Grace covered her mouth. It is wide. Shining with something fragile. These are, she struggled. These are not his. I nodded slowly. My vision blurred. Names staring back at me. Etched into metal. Etched into memory. Some I knew. Some I almost remembered. All of them. Lost. The garden tilted around me. Not from weakness. From truth. This ground, I said. Voice rough. And steady. It was never just a place to grow things. Grace looked at the rows behind us. The life we nurtured. Now stretching in quiet contrast. Then what have we been tending? The question settled heavily. I closed my hand around the tags. Cold. Real. Unforgiving. A resting place, I whispered. The wind moved again. Gentler now. Almost like a breath released. Grace reached for my arm. Her touch warm. Firm. We did not know, she said. Her voice carried no guilt. Only understanding. Only that quiet strength. That had been pulling me back. Piece by piece. I looked at her. Really looked. Rain clinging to her lashes. Soil on her hands. Grief and courage woven together. And something inside me shifted again. Not breaking this time. Aligning. We know now, I said. The words steadier. Heavier. Alive. The garden stretched behind us. No longer just a place of healing. But something deeper. Something sacred. And as the clouds began to thin, letting a pale light slip through, Grace tightened her grip slightly. As if she felt it too. That this was not the end of what we uncovered. But the beginning of something. Far more demanding. Far more revealing. And I drew a slow breath. Because for the first time, I understood. Some things buried in the earth do not ask to be forgotten. They wait for the right hands, the right moment, the right heart, to bring them back into the light. The pale sunlight touched the metal in my hand, and the name seemed to rise from it. Clearer, heavier. Grace stayed close, her shoulder against mine. Steady as breath. We cannot leave them here like this, she said. No doubt. Only purpose. I nodded. The garden stretched around us. Quiet now. As if listening. We mark it, I said. Properly. The word settled deep. Properly. Something I had failed to do. Too many times. Grace looked toward the old shed. Half hidden behind climbing vines. There are tools. Wood, we can build something. We carried the box. Tags. Every fragile piece. Each step felt deliberate. Like we were crossing into something sacred. Inside the shed. Dust floated in thin beams of light. The scent of old timber and oil. Sharp. Grounding. I set the container down. My hands lingered on it. Unwilling to let go. As if it might disappear again. Grace moved quietly. Gathering planks. Measuring space with her eyes. You build, she said softly. I will read their names. The words struck deeper than any command. I picked up the tools. The wood felt solid. Real. Honest beneath my grip. As I worked, each cut echoed. Clean. Precise. Behind me. Grace began. One name. Then another. Her voice steady. gentle. Each name filled the space, settling into the walls, into the air, into me. My hands slowed. Memories surfaced. Faces in fading light. Laughter cut short. Promises left unfinished. I pressed the blade harder, anchoring myself in the present. Grace's voice faltered once, just once, turned. Her fingers traced a tag, her lips trembling. "You know this one," she said. I stepped closer, looked down, and the world narrowed. One name, etched deeper than the rest. A name I carried, but never spoke. My breath caught, sharp, unforgiving. I thought. My voice broke. I thought he was lost far from here. Grace lifted her eyes to mine. Maybe he found his way back. The idea struck like a quiet storm. Not violent, but undeniable. I reached out, my fingers brushing the tag. Cold, yet familiar. Something inside me shifted again. Not pain, not guilt. Something closer to release. The air in the shed felt different. Lighter, yet fuller. As if every name spoken, every memory faced, was changing the space around us. I took a slow breath, then another. "We build more than a marker," I said. Grace nodded, understanding without words. "A place to remember." The phrase settled between us. Strong, rooted, alive. Inside, the garden moved gently in the breeze, leaves whispering, soil holding quiet stories. And as I picked up the next piece of wood, hands steadier now, I felt it clearly. This was no longer about what was buried. It was about what we chose to carry forward. And Grace stood beside me, reading another name. Duff, steady. As the light shifted slowly across the floor, and something deeper within me continued to rise, piece by piece, toward a truth I had avoided for years. And something deeper within me continued to rise, piece by piece, toward a truth I had avoided for years. The marker stood complete, simple, strong, weathered wood holding names that refused to fade. Grace brushed the last trace of dust away, her fingers gentle, as if she was touching every soul at once. The garden had changed, not just in color or life, in meaning. The wind moved softly now, carrying warmth instead of weight. I stood before the names, heart steady, for the first time in years. "I remember you," I said, not whispered, spoken, given back to the world. Grace stepped beside me, her hand finding mine. No hesitation, only quiet strength. "You stayed," she said. I shook my head slowly. "They brought me back." The truth settled deep, clear, unshakable. We planted flowers around the marker, small at first, fragile, yet certain. Days passed, then weeks. The garden grew, colors spread, life unfolded, every corner breathing with something honest. And so did I. The silence inside me softened, not empty anymore, but full of meaning. One evening, as the sky turned gold, Grace leaned against me. "Do you feel it?" she asked. I did. Not the absence of pain, but the understanding of it. The acceptance that loss and love can exist in the same breath. I looked at her, at the garden, at the place that once held only shadows, and now held something greater. Connection. Second chances. "We do not heal by forgetting," I said slowly. "We heal by remembering with love." He smiled. This time, it reached her soul. The wind carried the scent of blooming earth, rich, alive, and I understood. Heart can break, and still choose kindness. A past can wound, and still teach wisdom. And sometimes, when one soul reaches for another, with patience, with sincerity, they grow something stronger than pain. Something that outlives fear. Something that turns even the hardest ground into a place where life can begin again.